All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to General Botany class. Once again, this is week three. Well, my finger disappearing. So week three of our classes. So this week, going to talk about tracheophyte, which means the plant with vascular tissue. So this won't be very long. So hopefully you can stay with me for a little while, and then we can see some real example in the lab or the lab video, or if you have time available, you can come to our lab on in SCL building to see the actual specimen on site. So let's get to the materials today. So on week three, we're going to talk about tracheophyte, which, as I said earlier, tracheophytes refer to plant with tracheates. So this group of plant would have tracheates or the vascular tissue here. And the reason I put number one in here because for the rest of this class we're going to talk about all tracheophytes, but this is the beginning of the tracheophyte today. We're only going to talk about three groups of tracheophyte today. So let's review what we have so far. So we have so far talked about the algae, right? The organism, the photosynthetic organism that live mostly in the water. And the last week we talked about bryophyte, which are the non-vascular plant. So this guy don't have the vascular tissue. And then we now gonna move forward to the tracheophyte. So from this week we're gonna to focus the first half of the tracheophyte in these three subdivisions. So to review what happened again, I'm going to go through this flow again so that you have this burned into your memory. So we have the all photosynthetic organism that we study in this class. If they have no embryo, then the algae. If they start to have the embryo phase, the multicellular phase that have multiple cells that don't have any specific function yet, they're on kingdom plantae. And then if they don't have vascular tissue, then they are in division bryophyta, and the rest of them in the division tracheophyta with the vascular tissue. And then if they don't have seed, we call them seedless plant, which is like a bunch of different groups together. And then if they have seed, we call them spermopsida or seed plants. Let me write this down. So this is called seed plants. And then within each group, if you have seed plant, you have no flowers, then you're a gymnosperm. If you have flowers, you are angiosperm. Today, we're going to talk mostly about this top group here. Get to know more about bryophyte and algae, and bryophyte different from the rest of the plant kingdom for not having the vascular system, and most of the plant you see are in the gametophyte phase. So this phase have the haploid chromosome, right? Only one set of chromosome, and then they are mostly there to produce a gamete. So if I draw here, most of these are gametophyte, and only this part are sporophyte. But then, like for tracheophyte, they start having vascular system, and everything you see here is the sporophyte. The gametophyte is like a little thing underneath the ground. So the gametophyte generation becomes so reduced that you don't get to see much of them anymore. So in comparison to the bryophyta, so bryophyta have a ton more time as a gametophyte, whereas the tracheophyte only spend a tiny bit of time as the gametophyte. They spend the majority of time as a sporophyte. So let's review something about sporophyte here. So in sporophyte, again, the sporophyte, the spore means spore, right? Phyte means plant. So this is a plant that will produce a spore. So this is how they produce spore in general. So they sporophyte have leaves, some kind of leaf, like normal regular leaves. And then some of the leaf turn into the sporophyll or spore leaf. This sporophyll will produce the spores. So the sporophylls will produce spore in the structure called sporangium. Again, the word angium means containers. So in this container, there will be cell division that give rise to the spore, and in the sporangium they produce a spore, so which is now the end the haploid structure. The sporangium is still 2N, is still the sporophyte generation, and the meiosis happen to produce the spores. So once they're ready, the sporangium would burst open and release a spore, and this spore would then germinate into gametophyte. Okay, so this is a basic idea of how the sporophyte as a generation works. They go regularly, has two ends, and then at some point they create sporophyll, and on sporophyll they create sporangium on that sporophyll, and the sporangium release have meiosis in the sporangium, and then they produce the spores. So there's two types of spore can be produced. The first type is called, the first type is called homospores, meaning one side of spores. So, as I said earlier, the spore would like eventually germinate into the gametophyte, right? So in this case, homospore have one side. So each one of them become the male gametophyte, or they can go on to be the female gametophyte or male gametophyte. You never know. They look exactly the same. So they look exactly the same. This is called homospore. Homo means same. The other one, you can be heterospore. So there's two sizes of spores. In this case, you produce two types of spores. The little one is called microspore, the little spore, and the big one, like you see, it's like a lot bigger. It's like you don't have to ask like how much bigger is big, so just like a tiny bit bigger. It's not just a tiny bit bigger, it's a lot bigger. This is called megaspore. If you're a shopping fan for Thailand, you think of Mega Bang Na, right? Mega Bang Na is huge, like a huge place. Mega, I mean big. So in this case, if you produce heterospore, the microspore will germinate into the male gametophyte. Whereas if you produce megaspore, you will germinate, the megaspore will germinate into the female gametophyte. So in this case, you can figure out which one is which right away, like which one going to be what in the next generation based on the size of the spore. So this different plant group produce different kind of spore. Many plant group produce just homospore, many plant group produce like heterospore. So this would help us separate the two. Talk about what it's like to be homospore, right? So this is a simpler case because they have only one type of spore. So this is a review of alternation of generation once again. So you start in the sporophyte generation, right? The sporophyte generation put the sporangium right on the sporophyll. So if I draw, this is a sporophyll. The sporophyll that produce this container called sporangium. In sporangium, you have meiosis happen from two ends, go back to one end. This produces spore. And on the spore, they produce a gametophyte. You don't know if male or female gametophyte. Or that same gametophyte, or different gametophyte, they may produce an enteridium, which is a male structure. This is a male structure, and this is female structure, the achigonium. This is female. In case you don't remember the symbol, this is a male. So the male will produce a sperm, and female will produce the eggs, and this have fertilization and go back to the cycle and repeat the cycle again. So this is the simplified version of what it's like to have a plant with the homospore. They only have one side of spore, and that spore can grow into the gametophyte that produce both male and female on that same plant or different plants, but you can't tell them ahead of time. So that's what it like to be the homospore. And on the next clip, we'll talk about the first subdivision of the tracheophyte called Celopsida.